Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday evening here with us on our YouTube channel. Today, we're going to do Shamati number 19. As you know, we're continuing from the Shamati articles, and this one's called What is the Creator Hates the Bodies in the Work? Obviously, we're not going to take that corporeally. We're going to work on that in our inner work and see what it really means for us in our spiritual journey. So let's get smashing without further ado. Shamati number 19, what is the Creator hates the bodies in the work? If you have any questions or queries, as usual, shoot them through. We'll try to answer them as best we can. The Zohar says that the Creator hates the bodies. He said that we should interpret it as referring to the will to receive, called body. The Creator created his world for his glory, as it's written, everyone who is called by my name for my glory. I have created him, formed him, and also I made him. Therefore, this contradicts the body's argument that everything is for it, meaning only for its own benefit, while the Creator says the opposite, that everything should be for the sake of the Creator. This is why our sages said that the Creator said, he and I cannot dwell in the same abode. It follows that the primary separator from being in adhesion with the Creator is the will to receive. This is apparent when the evil comes, meaning the will to receive for oneself comes and asks, why do you want to work for the sake of the Creator? We think that it speaks as people do, that it wants to understand with its intellect. Yet this is not the truth, since it does not ask for whom one is working. This is certainly a rational argument, as this argument awakens in a reasonable person. Instead, the argument of the wicked is a bodily question. That is, it asks, what is this work? In other words, what will you profit from the exertion you are making? It means that it asks, if you're not working for your own benefit, what will the body, called the will to receive for oneself, get out of it? Since this is a bodily argument, the only reply is a bodily reply, which is, he blunted its teeth. And had he not been there, he would not have been redeemed. Why? Because the will to receive for oneself has no redemption, even at the time of redemption, since redemption will be when all the profits enter the vessels of bestowal and not the vessels of reception. The will to receive for oneself must always remain in deficit, since satisfying the will to receive is actual death. The reason is, as said above, that creation was primarily for his glory. And this is an answer to what's written, that his wish is to do good to his creations and not for himself. The interpretation will be that the essence of creation is to reveal all that the purpose of creation is to do good to his creations. This is specifically when one says that he was born to honor the Creator. All that time, in these vessels, the purpose of creation appears, which is to do good to his creations. For this reason, one must always examine oneself. The purpose of one's work, meaning if the Creator receives contentment in every act that one performs, because he wants equivalence of form with the Creator. This is called all your actions will be for the sake of the Creator, meaning that one wants the Creator to enjoy everything he does, as it is written, to bring contentment to his Maker. Also, one needs to conduct oneself with the will to receive and say to it, I've already decided that I do not want to receive any pleasure, because you want to enjoy. Since with your desire, I'm forced to be separated from the Creator, for disparity of form causes separation and distance from the Creator. One's hope should be that since he cannot break free from the power of the will to receive, he is therefore in perpetual ascents and descents. Hence he awaits the Creator to be rewarded with the Creator opening his eyes, and to have the strength to overcome and work only for the sake of the Creator. It is as it's written, one have I asked of the Lord, her will I seek. Her means the divinity, and one asks that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. The house of the Lord is the divinity, and now we can understand what our sages said about the verse, and you shall take for you on the first day, the first to count the iniquities. We must understand why is there joy if there is room for a count of iniquities here. He said that we must know that there is a matter of importance in the labor when there is contact between the individual and the Creator. It means that one feels that he needs the Creator, since in the state of labor he sees that no one in the world can save him from the state he is in except for the Creator. Then he sees that there is none else besides him who can save him from the state he is in, and from which he cannot escape. This is called having close contact with the Creator. If one knows how to appreciate that contact, meaning that one should believe that he's adhered to the Creator, meaning that all his thoughts is of the Creator, meaning that he will help him, for otherwise he sees that he is lost. Conversely, one who is rewarded with private providence and sees that the Creator does everything as it's written, he alone does, will do, and will do all the deeds, naturally has nothing to add, and in any case, he has no room for prayer for the Creator's help, since he sees that even without his prayer, the Creator still does everything. Hence, at that time, one has no place to be able to do good deeds, since he sees that without him too, everything is done by the Creator. Thus, one has no need for the Creator to help him do anything. In that state, he has no contact with the Creator to need him to the extent that he is lost if the Creator does not help him. It follows that he does not have the contact that he had with the Creator during the labor. He said that it's like a person who's hanging between life and death and asks of his friend to save him from death. How does he ask his friend? He certainly tries to ask his friend to have mercy on him and save him from death with every power at his disposal. He certainly never forgets to pray to his friend, since he sees that otherwise he will lose his life. However, one who asks of his friend for luxuries which are not so necessary, the pleading person is not so attached to his friend to give him what he asks for to the point that his mind will not be distracted from asking. You find that with things that are not related to life-saving, the pleading person is not so adhered to the giver. Thus, when one feels that he should ask the Creator to save him from death, meaning from the state of the wicked in their lives are called dead, the contact between the person and the Creator is close contact. For this reason, for the righteous, a place of work is to need the Creator's help. Otherwise, he is lost. This is what the righteous crave, a place to work so they will have close contact with the Creator. It follows that if the Creator gives room for work, these righteous are very happy. This is why they said, first to the count of iniquities. For them it is joyous to now have a place to work, meaning that now they have become needy of the Creator and can now come into close contact with the Creator, since one can come to the king's palace only for some purpose. This is the meaning of the verse, and you shall take for you. It specifies for you, since everything is in the hands of heaven, but the fear of heaven. In other words, the Creator can give abundance of light because he has it, but the darkness, the place of lack, this is not in his domain. Since there is a rule that there is fear of heaven only from a place of lack, and a place of lack is called the will to receive. It means that only then is there a place for labor. In what? In that it resists. The body comes and asks, what is the work? And one has nothing to answer to its question. Then one must assume the burden of the kingdom of heaven above reason as an ox to the burden and as a donkey to the load, without any arguments. Rather, he said, and his will was done. This is called for you, meaning this work belongs precisely to you and not to me, meaning the work that your will to receive requires. However, if the Creator gives some illumination from above, the will to receive surrenders and annuls like a candle before a torch, then one has no labor anyhow, since he no longer needs to take upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven, coercively, as an ox to the burden and as a donkey to the load, as it's written, you who love the Lord hate evil. This means that the love of the Creator extends only from the place of evil. In other words, to the extent that one has hatred for evil, meaning that he sees how the will to receive obstructs him from achieving the completeness of the goal, to the extent he needs to be imparted the love of the Creator. If one does not feel that he has evil, he cannot be granted the love of the Creator, since he has no need for it, as he already has satisfaction in the work. As we have said, one must not be angry when he has work with the will to receive, that it obstructs him in the work. One would certainly be more satisfied if the will to receive were absent from the body, meaning that it would not bring its questions to a person, obstructing him in the work of observing Torah and mitzvot. However, one should believe that the obstructions of the will to receive in the work come to him from above. One is given the force to discover the will to receive from above because there's room for work precisely when the will to receive awakens. Then one has close contact with the Creator to help him turn the will to receive to work in order to bestow. One must believe that from this extends contentment to the Creator, from his praying to him to draw him near in the manner of adhesion called equivalence of form, discerned as the annulment of the will to receive, so it is in order to bestow. The Creator says about this, "My sons defeated me." That is, I gave you the will to receive, and you asked me to give you a desire to bestow instead. Now we can interpret what is brought in the Gemara. Rav Pinhas ben Yair was going to redeem the captive. He came across the river Genai. The name of the river was Genai. He said to Genai, "Split your water and I will pass through you." It told him, "You're going to do your Maker's will, and I'm going to do my Maker's will. You perhaps do, perhaps not do, while I certainly do." He said that the meaning is that he told the river, meaning the will to receive, to let him through and reach the degree of doing the will of the Creator, meaning to do everything in order to bestow contentment upon his Maker. The river, the will to receive, replied that since the Creator created it with this nature of wanting to receive delight and pleasure, it therefore does not want to change the nature in which the Creator created it. Rav Pinhas ben Yair waged war against it, meaning he wanted to invert it to a desire to bestow. This is regarded as waging war against the creation that the Creator created in nature, called the will to receive, which the Creator created, which is the whole of creation, called existence from absence. We must know that during the work, when the will to receive comes to a person with its arguments, no argument or rationalizations help with it. Through one thinks that they are just arguments, it will not help one defeat his evil. Instead, as it's written, blunt its teeth. This means to advance only by actions, not by arguments. This is considered that one must add powers coercively. This is the meaning of what our sages said. He is coerced until he says, "I want." In other words, through persistence, habit becomes a second nature. One must especially try to have a strong desire to obtain the desire to bestow and overcome the will to receive. A strong desire means that a strong desire is measured by the increment of the in-between rests and the arrests, meaning the time gaps between each overcoming. Sometimes one receives a cessation in the middle, meaning a descent. This descent can be a cessation of a minute, an hour, a day, or a month. Afterwards, he assumes the work of overcoming the will to receive and the attempts to achieve the desire to bestow. A strong desire means that the cessation does not take him a long time, and he is immediately reawakened to the work. It's like a person who wants to break a big rock. He takes a big hammer and hammers many times all day long, but they are weak. In other words, he does not hammer the rock with one swing, but brings down the big hammer slowly. Afterwards, He complains that his work of breaking the rock is not for him, that it must take a very strong man to be able to break this big rock. He says that he was not born with such great powers to be able to break the rock. However, one who lifts this big hammer and strikes the rock with a big swing, not slowly, but with a great effort, the rock immediately surrenders to him and breaks. This is the meaning of like a strong hammer that shatters the rock. Similarly, in the holy work, which is to bring the vessels of reception into holiness, we have a strong hammer, meaning words of Torah that give us good counsels. However, it is not consistent, but with long intermissions in between, one escapes the campaign and says that he was not made for this. But this work requires one who was born with special skills for it. Nevertheless, one should believe that anyone can achieve the goal, but he should try to always increase his efforts to overcome, and then one can break the rock in a short time. We must also know that for the effort to make contact with the Creator, there's a very harsh condition here. The effort must be in the form of adornment. Adornment means something that is important to a person. One cannot work gladly if the labor is not of importance, meaning that one is happy that now he has contact with the Creator. This matter is implied in the citron. It's written about the citron, a fruit of the citrus tree, that it should be clean above its nose. It's known that there are 3 discernments: adornment, scent, and taste. Taste means that the lights are poured from above downwards, meaning below the mouth, where there are the palate and the taste. This means that the lights come in vessels of reception. Scent means that the lights come from below upwards. This means that the lights come in vessels of bestowal, in the form of receiving, and not bestowing below the palate and the throat. This is discerned as, and he shall smell in the fear of the Lord, said about the Messiah. It's known that scent is attributed to the nose. Okay, you guys tired? No, good. Let's finish the article. We have to be used to reading long articles, and you have to also keep your focus. Adornment is beauty, discerned as above one's nose, meaning scentless. It means that there is neither taste nor smell there. Thus, what is there by which one can endure? There's only the adornment in it, and this is what sustains him. We see about the citron that the adornment is in it precisely before it is sustainable, before it is suitable for eating. However, when it is suitable for eating, there is no adornment in it anymore. This comes to tell us about the work of the first to count the iniquities. This means that precisely when one works in the form of, and you shall take for you, meaning the work during the acceptance of the burden of the kingdom of heaven, when the body resists this work, then there is room for the joy of adornment. This means that during this work, the adornment is apparent. This means that if he has gladness from this work, it is because he considers this work as adornment and not as disgrace. In other words, sometimes one despises this work of assuming the burden of the kingdom of heaven, which is a time of a sensation of darkness, when one sees that no one can save him from the state he is in but the Creator. Then he takes upon himself the kingdom of heaven above reason, as an ox to the burden and as a donkey to the load. One should be glad that now he has something to give to the Creator, and the Creator enjoys him having something to give to the Creator. But one does not always have the strength to say that this is beautiful work, called adornment. but he despises this work. This is a harsh condition for one, to be able to say that he chooses this work over the work of whiteness, meaning that the state where he does not feel a taste of darkness during the work. Rather, at that time, he does feel a taste in the work, meaning that then he does not have to work with the will to receive. So it will agree to take upon itself the kingdom of heaven above reason. If he does overcome himself and can say that this work is pleasant to him, that now he's observing the commandments of faith above reason, and he accepts this work as beauty and adornment, this is called a joy of the commandment. This is the meaning of the prayer being more important than the response to the prayer. Since in prayer one has a place for labor, and he needs the Creator, meaning he awaits heaven's mercy. At that time, one has a true contact with the Creator, and he is in the king's palace. However, when the prayer is answered, he has already departed the king's palace, since he has already taken what he had asked for and left. Accordingly, we should understand the verse, "Your oils have a good fragrance. Your name is as oil poured forth." Oil is called the upper light. When it flows, poured forth, means during the cessation of the abundance. At that time, the scent from the oil remains, which is a reshima of what he had remains nonetheless. What he had remains nonetheless. Adornment, however, is called so in a place where there is no grip at all, meaning that even the reshima, the reminiscence, does not shine. This is the meaning of atik and arichampin. During the expansion, the abundance is called arichampin, which is chokhmah, meaning open providence. Atik comes from the Hebrew word vayatek, detachment, meaning the departure of the light. In other words, it does not shine, and this is called concealment. This is the time of rejection to clothing, which is the time of the reception of the king's crown, which is considered malchut of lights, regarded as the kingdom of heaven. It's written about the Zohar, the Shekhinah, the divinity, said to Rav Shimon, "There is no place to hide from you," meaning there is no place where I can hide myself from you. This means that even in the greatest concealment, in reality, he still takes upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven with great joy. The reason is that he follows a line of a desire to bestow, and therefore gives what he has in his hand. If the Creator gives him more, he gives more. And if he has nothing to give, he stands and cries like a crane for the Creator to save him from the evil water. Hence, in this manner too, he has contact with the Creator. The reason that this discernment is called atik, since atik is the highest degree, is that the farther the thing is from clothing, the higher it is. But the further the thing is from the clothing, the higher it is. One can feel in the most abstract thing called the absolute zero, since there man's hand does not reach. This means that the will to receive can grip only in a place where there is some expansion of light. Before one purifies one's vessels so as not to blemish the light, he is unable for the light to come to him in a form of expansion in the vessels. Only when one marches on the path of bestowal in a place where the will to receive is not present, whether in mind or in heart, there the light can come in utter completeness. Then the light comes to him in a sensation that he can feel the exaltedness of the upper light. However, when one has not corrected the vessel to work in order to bestow, when the light expands, it must be restricted and shine only according to the purity of the vessel. Hence, at that time, the light appears to be in utter smallness. Therefore, when the light is abstract from clothing in the vessel, the light can shine in utter completeness and clarity without any restrictions for the sake of the lower one. It follows that the importance of the work is precisely when one sees that he annuls his whole existence and being. For then, the will to receive has no power. Only then does one enter holiness. We must know that God has made the one opposite the other. It means that as much as there is disclosure in holiness, to that extent, the Sitra Achra awakens. In other words, when one claims it is all mine, meaning the entire body belongs to holiness, the Sitra Achra too argues against him that the whole body should serve the Sitra Achra. Hence, one must know that when he sees that the body claims that it belongs to the Sitra Achra and cries the famous question of who and what with all its might, it is a sign that one is walking on the path of truth, meaning that one's sole intention is to bestow contentment upon one's maker. Thus, the primary work is precisely in this state. One must know that it is a sign that this work hits the target. The sign is that he fights and sends his arrows to the head of the serpent, since it yells and argues the argument of what and who. Meaning, what is this work for you? Meaning, what will you gain by working only for the Creator and not for yourself? And the argument of who means that this is Pharaoh's complaint, who said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice?" It seems as if the who argument is a rational argument. Normally, when someone is told to go and work for someone, the person asks for whom. Hence, when the body claims, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice?" it is a rational argument. However, according to the rule that the intellect is not an object in itself, but is rather a mirror of what is found in the senses, it appears so in the mind. This is the meaning of the sons of Dan, Chushim. That is, the mind judges only according to what the senses let it scrutinize, and devise some inventions and tactics to suit the demands of the senses. In other words, what the senses demand, the mind tries to provide their wish. However, the mind itself has no need for itself for any demand. Hence, if there is a demand for bestowal in the senses, the mind operates according to a line of bestowal. And the mind does not ask questions, since it's merely serving the senses. The mind is like a person looking in the mirror to see if he's dirty. And all the places where the mirror shows that he is dirty, he goes and washes and cleans, since the mirror showed him that there are ugly things in his face that need to be cleaned. However, the hardest thing of all is to know what is considered ugly. Is it the will to receive, meaning the body's demand to do everything only for oneself? Or is the desire to bestow the ugly thing, which the body cannot tolerate? The mind cannot scrutinize it, like the mirror, which cannot say what is ugly and what is beauty. Rather, it all depends on the senses, and only the senses determine this. Hence, when one accustoms oneself to work coercively to work in bestowal, the mind too operates by lines of bestowal. At that time, it is impossible that the mind will pose the who question, when the senses have already grown accustomed to work in bestowal. In other words, the senses no longer ask the question, what is this work? Since they are already working in order to bestow, and naturally the mind does not ask the who question. you find that the primary work is in what is this work for you? And what one hears that the body does ask the who question, it is because the body does not want to degrade itself so much. This is why it asks the who question. It appears to be asking a rational question, but the truth is, that, as we have said above, the primary work is in the what. Right, we've got questions, I see. It's a bit of a long article, but we should be used to long articles. Devran's asking, is there a state of trying to deceive the Creator? A man is deceiving not just the Creator, but everybody. Our whole life is a deception because we're in the desire to receive. In the work, you have to discern the two questions he's asking: for who and why. What is the work, and for who am I working? But the desire to receive is always deceiving. Why? Also in life, we see that we're always self-righteous. Okay? Everybody sees life from their own eyes. Accordingly, everybody is seeing the world in their eyes. So what is true and what is not true, what is beautiful and what is ugly, like it says in the article. It's according to the senses. So until we come to the truth, we're always in this self-deception, deceiving others, and so on. But because we understand also perception of realities within the person, then the whole work is with me towards the Creator, right? So I have to check if I'm deceiving myself, right? Shamati is asking, how does one establish spiritual principles? What are the spiritual principles? There's only one spiritual principle, and that's to receive in order to bestow. Okay, so we have to use our nature in order to bestow. If we're talking about bestowal, it's spiritual. If we're talking about reception, to fulfill our desire to receive, that's called corporeality. What are the spiritual principles? Only one. There's only one spiritual principle. We bestow, and that's it. Patricia is asking, I'm thinking about how a flower can shatter a stone. Well, looks like we have to be a hammer instead of a flower. Okay, so I have to go through a transformation. But if you think about it, when a person comes to the path, one's all excited, fresh. Okay. Also, one is a bit like um, that flower that you mentioned, because we see it in a really positive way. However, in the article, you see how Rashbi is working, even in his dire situations. He's working with pleasure and joy. So what we have to understand is, as we move forward, advance and advance, also, like he says in the article, that one just keeps going consistently, right? The magic word here is consistency. Then one begins to understand all of the ups and downs he has to go through. And this makes the person tough on the path. Then you start becoming like the hammer, and you got the force and the power to break the stone. So it takes a bit of time, but the environment should mold us. We should let the environment work on us. This is why choosing a good environment for spirituality is really important, so that this consistency always is working on me. Payne's asking, when you tightly cling to the environment, doesn't the question, who am I, arise? Oh, it does. It's supposed to. Right? We can't hide from these questions. Why? Because we should always be going through a sense and a sense. You can't have the good without the bad. So left and right, left and right, left and right. Okay, so they always have to go together. All right, so choosing the environment allows you to work properly with the descents and the ascents, actually, both of them. If the Sumaya is asking again, um, if the adornment if the adornment about never letting go of the creator under any circumstances, how is the adornment? The adornment is like he says here, look, let's read and find out. In the last few paragraphs, he explains to us what it is. Okay. Let's see, it was somewhere here. Here we are. Adornment means something that is impossible, that is important to a person. All right. One cannot work gladly if the labor is not of importance, meaning that one is happy that now he has contact with the Creator. Okay. And that's adornment, the importance of increase in the group. If something is important, even if you have a bad day, you can still work on it. Okay. But if it's not important, you have a bad day, you'll let it go. So adornment is importance plus, because of the importance, you can work in joy. How can we transform the body's voice into a tool that serves the Creator? How can we adapt this to our group? I think every time a person's desire to receive increases, we have to use the environment to increase the importance of the goal. Okay? The body's voice, the body is the desire to receive. That we can't really escape until the last correction that we will go through. It will always complain. And the complaints will get harsher as we advance more and more on the path. So this is a matter of getting used to things. This is why in the article it says you can, if you get used to it, it'll become your second nature. All right. And this is how we need to do it. And what's the advice for it? It says, take it like an ox to the burden and a donkey to the load. Right? So one has to force oneself to constantly move forward. And that we can do with the help of the environment. As we read this article, is it with the intention to hate my body or the intention to transform my body into a form that serves the Creator? The body, once again, is the will to receive for myself. Okay, so we want to be in a place above its control. Right? So we can't get rid of the will to receive. It's our nature. What we want to do is become above the intention to receive. So the intention to receive for myself should be subdued. And that is what we should hate. But why should we hate it, right? What's there to hate? Because in the work, we should come to see that the intention to receive for myself is what is stopping me from adhering or reaching adhesion with the Creator. That's why. Nurten's asking, how do we examine whether the Creator is pleased or not? It's a good question. If we have vessels that can bestow, according to that, we can measure things. You can only measure the creator's contentment or the opposite according to your vessels. This is why building a vessel of bestowal on top of the desire to receive is the whole work. Until then, what do you do? That's another question. Until then, it says in the article, one should think that the creator will be pleased from what he is doing. So before we act, what should we do? We should intend, right, that the action that we're doing will bring us closer to the creator. So all our thoughts, like it says in the article, all our thoughts should be about the creator. Pelin's asking, does intending to see the driving force behind every situation make the creator happy? Whew. Well, I don't know. You have to ask him that. Okay, but according to the article, okay, wanting to cause happiness or contentment to the creator with the act I'm doing right now to get closer to him and wanting to transform my desire to receive for myself into bestowal can be assumed as causing contentment. Right now, how can you cause contentment? If you desire and wish your action to be correct in order to cause contentment to the creator, or causing contentment to the creator because you want that change. Right? Until we have the vessels to bestow, we can wish and hope that the action will be to bring contentment to the creator. It's not a bad practice. We should all be practicing it every day whenever you're doing something, that I'm thinking first and I want that this action will be good for our spiritual growth in order to bring contentment to the creator so we can bestow to the creator. Okay, so always being in that frame of thought is a good thing, actually. Ingrid's asking, should one be in bestowal before one establishes contact with the creator? We should at least be above the desire to receive for ourselves. At least be above it, because it's impossible to feel the creator if you're in a desire to receive for yourself. Why? Because of the law of not abiding to the equivalence of form. You can only feel something if you have equivalence of form. So until at least we're above the desire to receive for ourselves completely, a sensation of being above it, at least being close to the creator, is not going to be on. It's not going to happen. Dennis is asking, what does rejecting the clothing mean? What's the whole sentence? Let's see. Rejecting the clothing. Rejecting the clothing. How come I can't find it? Just bear with me. Let's see. With that intention, okay, tell me, give me the whole paragraph so I can check it out. With what intention should one pray when the body is dominant? We should intend to overcome the dominance of the body, and we can take a recommendation from the article here. It says to blunt its teeth. How do you do that? He says by actions. Okay, so whenever my desire to receive is against me, I should do actions rather than philosophize with myself. Okay, act, do something to move forward. Okay, Dennis's question is asking, and and the continuation of that Question is, how can we include friends in the prayer? Well, you think about them. You think about them and you think why you need to connect with other people. Ariham's atik comes from the Hebrew word vayatek, detachment, meaning the departure of the light. In other words, it does not shine, and this is called concealment. This is the time of rejection to clothing, which is the time of the reception of the king's crown, which is considered malchut of lights, regardless as the kingdom of heaven. Okay, rejection of clothing is it can't bestow at that point. That's why it's veyatek, detached. Clothing is if you can clothe in your desire to receive for yourself, or you can clothe your desire to receive with bestowing. So it depends on the intention. Okay, so rejection to clothing is it if you can't bestow at the moment, you can't receive lights. Okay? Then Malkut is going to be empty. The next question Farooq is asking, how is the desire for the sake of the Creator formed? Is it possible? That's called an intention to bestow, and you have to ask for it. The whole idea is to ask for the intention to bestow. This is why every time you go on the line of bestowal, as it says in the article as well, something against bestowal should pop up. Okay, so the more you want to bestow, what does he say in the article? He says, well, for who and what? What is the work and who do I need to do it for? Like the Pharaoh says, right? Who's the creator that I should listen to his voice? So we should discover more and more the intention to receive. If I discover more the intention to receive, and if I see that it's stopping me from reaching adhesion or adhesion with the Creator, then I can ask for bestowal. I can't ask for something, it says it in the article as well. I can't ask for something if it's not like a life and death situation. You see that it gives us an allegory. If I depend on a friend for my life, then I will be begging him, right? It says in the story in the article. But if it's not important for me, then, hey, it's okay if he gives it or not. So a person needs to come to a state where they really need and want the desire to bestow. Maher's asking, how can I rise above my perception and feelings in order to bring contentment to the Creator and see through the Creator's eyes? Well, that's like Farooq's question. You have to want it badly. How can I bring together my perception and what is beyond reason in the middle line, where you don't have lines at the moment? You can only work in the line of bestowal and discover the left line, which is not bestowal. Right? Currently, that's the work. Jana is asking, sir, are you a Jew? Religion-wise, no. Ingrid's asking, if the creator between friends, should we work towards the group? If the creator is between the friends, should we work towards the group? We should always be working towards the group. Because at the end of the day, what are we talking about here? Getting to equivalence of form. What is that equivalence of form? It is love and bestowal, right? Love and bestowal, it can only be practiced between people, since we're not going to be able to practice it with the Creator, right? So we can only practice with the friends. And this is the exact place by working with other people on love and bestowal, we can actually discern if we want to do it, not to do it, how to do it, and all that kind of stuff, which it's talking about in the article, because one finds it very difficult to keep bestowing to others when our nature is reception. All right. Okay, good. So that's 8:52 already. I'm going to love you and leave you. I've got another program at 9 p.m. my time. So have a good evening, and hopefully we'll see each other again next time.